Kelly, welcome. Kelly Gurr.
Thank you. It's great to be chatting with you.
I am so excited about this conversation today. Since I saw your note on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago about your digital nomad journey, I've been so excited to chat to you about it. So yeah, really looking forward to getting into all the ins and outs of how it's going for you. But before we do that, obviously, this podcast is about careers and career journeys. So maybe let's start there and maybe tell us a bit about your career journey to date, and then we'll get into the life on the road.
Sure thing. I'm a strategic marketing generalist and project manager with experience working with global and national brands. I've worked with a lot of different industries from tech to law to manufacturing and not for profit. I actually started in B2C services marketing with a focus on brand, marcoms, campaigns, and events, and then moved into B2B and B2B2C marketing with a focus on strategy, product, go to market, as well as leading teams. And then I've also worked in project management, so managing the delivery of federal grants, for example. And now I really thrive at that intersection of strategy and customer experience and operations and really bringing teams together to deliver a unified vision. So, most recently, I've been leading the launch of two new SaaS products, starting in Australia and then expanding to the rest of the world, excluding US, Canada, and the UK. So, these were the business's first product launches in 10 years. And I've been responsible for the development, the implementation, and the management of integrated programs to drive lead generation, awareness, and revenue growth. And I'm super proud to say that both launches delivered well over target. It's been going well.
Super cool. I love the breadth of kind of what you've done, as you mentioned, kind of different industries, the B2B, the B2C. Was that something that you sort of purposefully set out to have in the beginning, or did it just kind of happen that way?
It kind of just happened that way. So within each role, there was always a synergy to the next role. So if there was an event focus, for example, then I did a lot of events in law, and then that transferred really nicely into manufacturing, believe it or not, even looking at sponsorships and partnerships. So I managed race cars, believe it or not, in the manufacturing role. And then that transferred over really well to worked in a stockbroking firm. And then I ended up managing, gosh, I think it was something like 32 different race cars, all the marketing and branding for the race cars. So, there's always one element that has transferred over, or one or many
Hmm.
elements that have transferred in between the roles, even if they're completely different industries, and which I've loved. So it's given me a lot of variety and heaps of learnings throughout my career.
Yeah, and the project management aspect of it, because I always think, although obviously technically quite different disciplines, there is so much crossover between that sort of
Mhm.
project management discipline and marketing. How did that kind of come about for you, wanting to kind of have that additional focus on the project management side?
Yeah, sure. So it's an area that I've always really enjoyed. I love working with teams, so building teams and working cross functionally and all working together to deliver a unified vision. And so I actually went and did further study in project management and also in agile, and then combined that with the unique set of skills and experience that I've had from all those different industries. All of that, it provides me the ability to enter a business and quickly assess what's working, what's not working, and devise a strategy. And then looking at things holistically and approaching them with a fresh perspective. So, leveraging those skills, I've been able to move between marketing and project management and go to market roles because they all involve strategy, planning, and working closely with cross functional teams, which is what I really enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. Like I talk about this a lot, and I'm probably a bit of a broken record about the whole experience across multiple industries, because I just think it does give you such a broader frame of reference of maybe what has worked, what hasn't worked, what might what you might see happening in one particular niche that's totally transferable to another, but maybe the people with only that industry experience haven't looked at it that way before. And as you said, that kind of fresh perspective, fresh set of eyes. I just think there's so many benefits to it. And it continues to surprise me that more employers don't kind of automatically embrace that.
Yes, look, I agree. At times it's been challenging being a
Mm.
generalist as well, because certainly when I lived in the UK for 2 years, when I came back, employers were definitely wanting specialists at that point in time. It's probably only now that I've got more senior that being a generalist has actually been a real feather in my cap, or been recognised as a real feather in my cap. So I totally echo your thoughts. There's so much to be gained from having that variety of industry experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm smiling to myself as we're talking because I could hear birds in the background, which kind of does lead into the next part of what we're going to be talking about. Why are
Yeah.
there birds in the background? Why are you therefore sat outside? And what is the large white thing behind you?
Right, got you. So I'm coming to you today live from a caravan. So I'm currently traveling through Australia with my family in a 21-foot caravan for 8 months. So I am in Kununurra in WA currently, which is up the pretty close to the top of Australia. It's beautiful and warm here. We're 10 weeks in and absolutely loving it. And the beautiful thing has been that I've been able to work as well whilst I've been on the road. So still been delivering those product launches and releases and really balancing work and adventure. Although
So
there's a big
cool.
truck going by now. So sorry if that's a bit noisy.
So cool. How did this all come about, Kelly? Is it something that you've had in your mind for a long time that you've kind of wanted to do and have been, I don't know, working towards or kind of planting the seeds of? How did it all come about?
So, actually, an old colleague and friend of mine started van life in the US 4 years ago. And at that time, I just loved the idea of the freedom that it brought her. And so I really think that planted the seed. And then I've been contracting for the past year, and with our personal circumstances aligning, we decided this year to take the leap. So, after 5 months of planning, packing, buying a car and a caravan, and lots of research, it all came together. And it's kind of felt like managing a project at work, really. You know, there's
Yeah.
been extensive spreadsheets, lots of delegation, consulting experts who have gone through it before, and then teamwork. Like everyone in the family has had to get involved. So I'm a big believer in trusting your intuition, and, everything sort of just fell in place.
Did you have any experience of doing like smaller versions of this before? Had you, as a family been camping and caravanning? And so it's just obviously a much extended version of that. But did you at least have a small sense of kind of what you were in for?
Yes, look, thankfully, so my husband and I have always traveled over the past 25 years. We did 2 months in Africa in tents, and then even with kids, we've always camped in tents, and we had a camper trailer. I think the first trip I took the kids or my son on, he was 3 months old, and I took him, and my daughter would have been 4, I think, at the time. And it was just the two of us and myself in a tent on the Murray River
Oh.
camping. So, look, that wasn't the most successful camping trip, I will be honest. Turns out 3 months by yourself, no, not a good idea. But yeah, so they've grown up camping. So it's something that they really enjoy as well. And just getting out in nature, kids are on tablets so much these days. So just to be able to get out and go on these nature hikes, see these waterfalls, cultures even within Australia, it's really eye opening and a great education for them.
Yeah, I'm sure. I do want to kind of get into that in a bit more detail, but just interested before we start to talk about that. How did the conversation with your employer go? Because I'd imagine there's lots of people listening to this going, "This sounds great. I'd like to do this." And I think often the assumption is that in order to do it, you have to be a freelancer or you have to
Mhm.
be owning your own business or something like that, as
Mhm.
opposed to someone that's in a kind of quote unquote 9 to 5 sort of role.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how did that go? How did that conversation go?
So so as I mentioned, I was on a contract, and then the conversation started around extending my contract, which is great news. Although at that point, I shared that my plans were to travel and proposed to them that I could still deliver the projects part time on the road. So since I was already working remotely from Melbourne, it wasn't a big leap. The main office is located in Sydney. And so then after going through the necessary approval channels, we agreed on a 5-day fortnight. And so I've been quite fortunate that there's been a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, I'd imagine that already being remote probably does make quite a big difference because you've
Yeah.
obviously proven yourself in that sort of remote capacity. And I'd imagine you're not the only person who works remotely, and the company's kind of set up to accommodate that perhaps a bit more.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, look, exactly what you said. Because I was already working remotely, and every day was dialing in and already using Slack, already using
Mm.
Zoom, still liaising with the rest of the team in that manner. It wasn't a massive change for everyone else, so it didn't impact the team negatively.
And if you had to be, I guess, a bit more, I suppose you would be anyway with a sort of a project-based role, but have you had to be a little bit more kind of prescriptive with your deliverables and kind of what they're expecting from you? Like, has that been part of the conversation?
Yeah, look, certainly I would say from an employer point of view, clear communication has been crucial. So we've been scheduling in regular check-ins to maintain that communication and helps me feel connected and
Yeah.
supported. So my manager and I always prioritize our weekly one-on-ones. And then we set clear expectations regarding deadlines and deliverables to ensure that the team goals were aligned. So yeah, that was certainly crucial to the success of this.
Yeah. And your 5 days, are they typically kind of set days or do they float depending on kind of what's going on in the broader scheme of things?
So my usual is to work 8 to 12, Monday to Friday, Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
But there has been some days when I work longer so that I can take a day off to explore, or sometimes places like, if we're in Uluru or Bungle Bungles, you need extra days to be able to get out and do things. So there's also been connectivity issues. So the flexibility that my manager has shown around that has been great. So if ever I couldn't jump on because we didn't have power, which has happened more than once. They've been great and really understanding about that. And likewise, then if there's a time that I need to jump on, there has been times that we'll pull the caravan over to the side of the road and set up Starlink, and I'll jump on a meeting. Or I've been on a riverbed and just holding the mobile phone and using a neighbour's internet to jump onto things. So it is very much that give and take. Having that flexibility and that understanding has been good.
I'd imagine Starlink makes a big difference. It would be almost impossible without that, I'd imagine.
100%. Starlink is great. I honestly thought that we would have more phone reception. We're all with Telstra, and it's only been in the main towns. And in
Mm.
between, there's been no reception. So Starlink has been crucial to making this happen.
Yeah, as a bit of an aside, I've watched a few people doing van life, but also a
Mhm.
couple that live on a boat that have YouTube channels, and they all absolutely rave about Starlink, and it is for them also the thing that probably enables them to be able
Yeah.
to do it. So yeah, Cara and Nate on YouTube, if you've ever seen them, they do van life.
No, but I should check it out.
Yeah, they do traveling more broadly, but then they've started doing a bit of van life. And then the couple that live on the boat, it's called La Vagabond, and they've been living
Okay.
on. Actually, it's their third incarnation of the boat, and now they've got two kids.
Wow.
They've been on there for about 8 years, and they literally sail around the world like constantly. It's really interesting. Some
Wow.
very remote places that they go to. They're in the Philippines at the moment. But yeah, fascinating. I think it's one of the things I love about YouTube. You get all these insights into
Mm.
just really different lives that people live, and I always find it find it very interesting. So I recommend those if you have
Thank
have
you.
any downtime when you're not out in nature and doing far more interesting things.
I'll have to check it out for sure. It sounds great.
You said 10 months?
8 months in total.
Sorry,
Yeah.
8 months. Is there
Oh,
kind of a rough itinerary? Do you know kind of roughly where you're going, or how is that all coming together?
yeah, certainly. So we definitely have an itinerary, and for me, sort of planning has been key. So I think if you're traveling for a certain period of time, it really helps to plan ahead where you're going to be, and again whether you'll be connected to power. There'll be a continuing theme here, and it's power. And I think as well, sort of that planning really helps with that work-life balance. So balancing between work and travel, ensuring you have enough time to explore around working. Like I didn't want to miss out on seeing the
Hmm.
sights because I was, working away. So, yeah, look, for me, I certainly recommend planning. Like I said, especially if you've got a set time period. If you're traveling indefinitely, then you've probably got a little bit more time to spare. But the other thing that I'd also recommend is flexible workspaces. So think about how you like to work and where. So for me, I really need two screens. So my monitor actually doubles up as our TV with Google Chrome. So, the other thing is, look at where. So, look at your accommodation options. I do a lot of work inside the caravan, outside the caravan, sometimes on the bed, depending on what the kids are doing. But also, local cafes are good, and libraries are great for free Wi Fi and also printing if you need it.
Oh, of course. I mean, yeah. And so, again, it's the things that you don't even think about sometimes, just those
Yeah.
things that you take for granted, probably like
Yeah.
power. And then
Yeah.
you realize how big a deal that is. You can't just flick the switch and it automatically works.
Yes, totally. Or yes, and when I say power as well, we've run out of power. So at the beginning, especially, I did have to message my boss and say, "I'm sorry, we've woken up and there's no power." So it's, if anything, I think this trip has really taught me about adaptability. Working in different locations, working under varying conditions. It's really strengthened my ability to adjust to all those different situations. Usually power related.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
just working with what you've got.
How are your kids finding it? How are they going?
They're good. And look, I would say they're probably the same as us. You have good days and bad days. So there's certainly days where you miss your friends. For me, I miss silence. Just a little bit of silence would
Yeah.
be good. This is where headphones are good.
Yeah.
So the kids, they're loving it for the whole. They're making heaps new friends. At the beginning of the trip, they'd be all timid and not sure if they'd go out and talk to people. And now we'll stop at a service station or something and they'll go to the car next door and go, "Hi, where are you going?" Which is great. I'm getting the kids to record a learning for the different places that we go. And so then I ask them 3 questions. Okay, so what did you learn at this place? And again, at first they were all timid, and now my daughter's like, "Hi, I'm Maddie." This whole like flamboyant thing. So yeah, they're learning different skills, presentation skills. So even, what
Mm,
you and I are doing, we were talking
yeah.
earlier, and say, I still get nervous jumping on a screen. If I can teach her those skills at 10, I think that's brilliant. They're skills that'll take her through her whole life. So still doing maths and, English and all those things as well. But
Yeah.
there's lots of additional skills that they're learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes it's easy to, obviously, school and that side of thing is important, but just broader life skills, like they're
Mm.
so, so important. I don't know if you can be 30, 35 in a role. Are you going to remember what you learnt in maths class? Probably not. But
Sure.
the life skills that you learn are still going to be with you. Like they're
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
foundational part, I think, of what you learn. They're still doing schoolwork though, so they're doing, like, remote schooling?
They're doing homeschooling. So
Homeschooling.
yes, I said that very tentatively. So the general plan is, like I said, I tend to work in the mornings. During that time, the kids are either sleeping because especially I'm in WA at the moment, so we're 2 hours behind, or they'll be doing schoolwork whilst I work. So, the morning is really for working, schoolwork, planning, and then the afternoon is fun time. So we all kind of work to that schedule.
It's quite a nice routine, that actually, isn't it? And I guess the fact that I guess you couldn't do it if you weren't all on that same schedule, it'd probably be too much
Mm-mm.
chaos. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because you sort of think about doing something like this as having freedom and, do whatever you want. And but there, I guess, still is that need for a bit of structure, isn't there? And kind of a bit of kind of day planning around how all that looks.
Yeah, totally. And I guess the other thing I'd add to that is each to their own as well. So there's
Mm.
certainly lots of other families that we've met that are not so structured, but you've got to do what works for you. So I am very process orientated, which works well with work.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously that flows over into my personal life as well. So the kids have grown up in a routine kind of household. I mean, I don't mean strict
Yeah,
regimented,
yeah,
but
yeah,
we have a structure and that actually works really well for them. It's when we don't have a structure or a plan that it all falls apart.
yeah. What's been is there one thing or a few things that have surprised you so far? Things that you perhaps weren't expecting or just hadn't thought of? I'm sure there's plenty of things like that. You think, "Oh my God,
Yes.
how did I not think about
Mhm.
that?"
Yes, definitely. I think our budget in the first probably 2 weeks definitely went out the window as we went, oh my gosh, we forgot this. Oh my gosh, we've said. So, for all the research you can do, there's always going to be something that you've forgotten or that you went, oh, we won't need that. And then you get started. Actually, we do need that. So, yeah, look, certainly, like I said, that adaptability. But for me, I was actually surprised how easy it was to quickly get into the flow. I think that ability to focus. So I'm good at switching on immediately and, just being able to jump straight in every morning and make sure I hit my daily goals. But on reflection, that's also one of my top 5 Clifton strengths. So that probably shouldn't be so much of a surprise. But again, it's making sure that it works for you. And I think as well, there's the career side of things, being on the road and working part time. I thought it would mostly be execution work that I'd be doing or something like that. But I've continued to work in strategic roles and still deliver great results, even though I'm working remotely and traveling around. So that's been a pleasant surprise for me, and also a credit to my manager and my employer that they've been open-minded in still allowing that work to continue.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because you probably would just have that assumption that just the nature of it, yeah, as you said, becomes more, well, I'm going to have to focus on kind of doing tasks and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
not get to do some of that other stuff. But also, I
yeah,
guess if the structure is there and the actually part time is probably quite suited to that because you can jump in, do some, delegate some tasks, do the strategic thinking bit, and then come back at the next
yeah,
stage
yeah.
down the line, which actually I'd imagine works quite well.
It has been working quite well. And then similarly, that's where the time difference has actually worked in my
Yeah,
favor as well. So I tend to jump on before everyone's online in Sydney.
yeah.
So it gives me, a good hour, sometimes 2 hours to just, you
Mm.
know, get that thinking sorted. So, you know, in professional life, that's what you crave, right? Is no meeting time
Yeah,
and having that clear thinking time for strategy. So
yeah.
it has actually worked out well in that respect.
Yeah, 2 hours is probably a good one for that, isn't it? I wonder if it was literally kind of night is day is night, or a really significant amount of time would be much more challenging, but 2 hours is
Yeah.
probably a sweet spot. So maybe that means you
Yeah.
just have to stay you just have to stay where you are in that 2 hour zone.
Maybe, I don't know. Well, and look, I guess the other thing that has been or a learning for me has been that self-discipline side of things. So, um, I think usually when you talk about self-discipline, people probably assume that I mean, self-discipline on myself to knuckle down and do the work. But to be honest, and those who know me know that switching off has not been my strong suit. So that's actually been that's probably been the biggest learning for me, is to recognize that I can't get as much done in part-time hours and to set my weekly goals accordingly, and then saying, yes, okay, this is what I needed to get done today, and that is done. And now let's go and explore a new location with the family. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's been a great learning.
Yeah, and I guess, if you were at home in that scenario, it's so easy for that time to creep because there probably isn't
Mm,
some big activity that the whole family are going off to do on a
spot on.
daily basis. Whereas at the moment, if you're the one sitting there still typing away, you're like, something's wrong with this picture.
Totally, totally. Yes. And plus now I have a lot more other people going, let's get going.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What's been your favorite place that you've been to so far?
So far, my top three are Lake Argyle in WA, Daily Waters Pub in Northern Territory, which more for the experience and the atmosphere. And I think number three would be Bitter Springs, also in Northern Territory. So it's a heated spring that you float down,
Ah,
and then you walk up, float down, and walk up. And would you believe we saw the kids' principal there? So
that's
unfortunately,
great.
they were behaving really well. They weren't bickering, and then she walks up. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's classic, isn't it? You're literally in the middle of Australia, and there you see someone you
Crazy.
know.
Crazy. I have been told, so we're just starting WA now though, and I have been told that WA is just stunning. So we'll have to revisit this and see what my top three ends up
Yeah,
being at the end.
yeah. I haven't been at that entire part of Australia. I haven't got to yet. So, but I've seen things online or watched YouTube. It does just look stunning, and just
Mhm.
the extra level of remoteness of
Yes,
you're already remote in Australia or with Australia, and then you're then remote within that country. It just, yeah, I think would be quite special. Intrigued
for
to hear
sure.
about that. Tell me about the pub. What was so special about this pub?
So it's the town is basically revolved around the pub. It's a stretch of road that's maybe 50 meters. All the caravans are parked up, and then everyone gets out of the car and just walks. And you're walking with donkeys down the road, and horses down the road, and chickens. And then this pub, it has been around, gosh, I think it's for like 60 years or something. And it's just got a great atmosphere. And everyone comes to have a good time. They had singer on in the afternoon. Then they served the meals, and they had another singer on, and all the families were up dancing. So, yeah, it's just they've cracked that secret sauce for an experience,
Mm,
and it starts from the moment that you get there to the moment that you end. And I really appreciate that from a
yeah,
personal and from a professional point of view.
nice. Sorry, what was it called again? Remind me of the name.
Daily Waters, so Daly Waters.
Add that
Yeah.
one. That one to the list.
It's again in the middle of nowhere, but it's close to Bitter Springs. So if you're
Yeah,
ready to
you
both,
cool.
check both of those out.
Yeah, I went to Uluru for the first time about 4 or 5 weeks ago, which was my first trip, certainly to the Northern Territory and to some of those kind of more remote places in Australia. So I think I have now kind of officially got the bug for for seeing more of those places. Yeah, just really, really incredible. Although it did surprise me that it's not more deserty. Like in my head, it
Mm,
would look far more like a desert,
mhm.
and I was surprised how much greenery there was and
Yeah,
how much just vegetation kind of generally. But yeah, really interesting. Yeah, good to get there. I've been meaning to go for like 13 years.
also it's stunning. And I think as well, it's amazing different places in Australia, how quickly the sun sets, for example.
Yeah.
You know, the sun is going down and gone within half an hour, but the colours that
Mm,
you get in the sky are next level. So even witnessing just natural
yeah.
phenomenons like that, yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. What's the community like on the road? Is there you're just talking about the pub there, and the caravans kind of all parked up, and is there a sense of community still? And if so, what does that look like?
Definitely, there's a sense of community, especially, generally, people are camping in campgrounds or caravan parks, and we're all doing a similar trip. We might be going different ways, but everyone's in very much the same situation. There's a lot of kids traveling, so a lot of sharing of stories and tips of where people have been, sharing tips with the kids and homeschooling, sharing tips with the washing machines that are the good ones, or the showers that are the good ones for washing your hair. So it's a very open, friendly inviting community, I would say, and very understanding as well. So, even if I've had to work, then other families like, yeah, just send the kids over here or whatever. So that's been good.
Were you expecting there to be as many other families? Because just as you were saying that, I was sort of thinking, oh, to me, that's a surprise. I would have perhaps expected more, I don't know, but, retired people, or I wouldn't necessarily have assumed there would have been a lot of other families.
Mm. I'm going to say no, I didn't expect there to be as many families as there is. So, which to me, when we were planning, it was like this was this novel experience that not many people get to do. And then you get out here into the big wide world, you're like, oh, hang on a minute. People have already sussed this out and have already got on board this way before I even thought about it. And so many people. So, it's the world is changing. You don't need to be chained to your desk anymore. You can get out and really make your life what you want it to be, and still have a career and still, educate the kids, but it's not this one-dimensional track that we grew up with. Now there's lots of different ways of doing that and how that might look. So that's been a great learning and a bit comforting as well.
Yeah,
So again,
yeah,
learn from other people.
yeah.
So
I think
yes, was surprising.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point there. And I do think, if there's one good thing that came from COVID, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
that people's kind of sense of life is for living, and you've kind of just got to get out there and make it happen. Like, don't wait for some of these things, because you never know what might happen. If you've got the opportunity to go and do something, do it. And
Yeah.
say, life is for living, and make the other stuff where possible kind of fit around that. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be the other way around. I saw a really interesting article yesterday, and then we both did it before. We said work-life balance, and we all just default to saying work-life balance. And I read this
Mm-hmm.
article saying actually it should be life-work balance, and even just kind of
Yeah.
changing the way you think about that is actually
Yeah.
quite a big shift. So instead of, life has to fit around work, well, why can't work fit around life? Like, why does
Mm-hmm.
that have to come first? And I think, yeah, it's a real mindset shift. And that's obviously,
Mm-hmm.
not saying that work's not important, and, your career's important, and all of those things that kind of go into it. And you can still be ambitious, and you can still, do great work and deliver things, but it doesn't have to be the be all and end all of your life. And I actually think it's quite liberating to kind of think about it in that sense. And part of the reason that I wanted to have this conversation with you, of just kind of, showing that it's possible, and that, yeah, you can
Yeah.
do these things, and it doesn't have to be something that, you only see on YouTube, if you're me, or
Yeah.
that you do when you're retired, or, you can
Totally.
make it work. It's really cool.
I couldn't agree more. And I think to add to that as well, I would say I almost feel like we're at the older end as well of people. I mean, definitely there's the grey nomad, so
Yeah.
we're not in that category. But yeah, there are so many people who are younger than us by 10 or so years who are doing this life as well. I'm like, good on you.
Yeah.
They're so much more switched on than I was at that age. To your point about making their life work for them and making their work career work for them. So full credit to them. And that's the benefit of this younger generations coming through. And again, like I said, things to teach the kids. Hopefully they'll look at things through that lens then and go, okay, well, let's make life work for us, and let's get out there and experience life while we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I often think, I mentioned the show that I watched about the couple that live on the boat with their kids are quite young. I'd say maybe 3 and 2. And I often watch the show thinking, I wonder what their kids will be like when they're grown up. Like, I wonder what
Yeah.
because they're fully homeschooled, and they've only ever known living on this boat. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know anything else. Yeah, and I often watch it thinking, gosh, I wonder, I suspect they'll be very interesting people with, very different perspectives on life, having done something like that. And although, it's easy for me to say I don't have my own kids, but I have experienced it as a kid. I grew up in Africa and did lots of kind of what outwardly unusual things when I was a kid, but you don't know any different at the time. That's kind of what seems like normal life. And I think it has made me certainly more kind of open to traveling and probably a bit more open-minded about how I think about things. And I just think it's such an amazing thing to be able to give them. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they look back on it in kind of future years to come.
Yeah, look, I agree totally. Yeah, but there's certainly things that they miss from home, but they well and truly appreciate what we're getting to be able to do. And before we started, like the first person I actually checked with was my daughter before I even checked with my husband and said, would you be interested in traveling Australia? She's like, oh my God, that's on my bucket list. She's 10. She's got a bucket list.
God
Who
love
knew?
her.
I was like, okay, well, she was probably going to be my toughest audience, saying goodbye to the world that she knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's really taken it with both hands. So, and embracing it. So that's great.
Really
it was
cool.
easy to convince my husband.
He was on
Until
board.
one night. Yeah.
You touched on it before, and it was something I wanted to ask you about, just the kind of, I guess, the day-to-day practicalities. Like you mentioned, if there's a good shower block or somewhere where there's good washing machines and just that kind of life stuff, particularly with family there as well. How have you found like that aspect of it?
Hit and miss.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some of the everyday things that you just take for granted. And yeah, so you do get excited if, like you said, if there's a good washing machine, if there's a good area to hang out your washing, if it's a good shower that has consistent water flow, good temperature. Like I said, for washing your hair, it sounds like I'm all about washing my hair, but trust me, it's
I can imagine, yeah.
A good shower is crucial.
Yeah.
We've spoken about power, even so we spoke about planning as well. And so planning for power, but you also need to plan for when you can top up water, when you can top up with fuel. We have run out of fuel once as well. That was fun. So those kind of, topping up with food. Literally tomorrow we leave to go off grid for the next 3 weeks. So I've just done a massive shop and had to fill up the freezer, fill up the fridge, fill up underneath the couch because we are not seeing a shop for 3 weeks. You've also got to know dump points for human waste. So, there's a lot to consider that you take for granted. Yeah. And all of those things that I just mentioned are general everyday things. So again, learning points, right?
Yeah. How are you feeling about the 3 weeks off grid? What's the feeling? Bit of trepidation there, or yeah.
Yes, in all honesty, I'm a little bit nervous, but also excited. We've prepared for it as much as we can. We're going to be seeing some amazing gorges and waterfalls. There's a lot of great hikes out there. So this is pretty much traveling across the top of Australia. It's a very corrugated, it's not a great road. It's 660 kilometres of corrugated roads, potholes, big rocks. There's people at the caravan here who have lost bathroom doors, that microwaves have fallen out, that it's pierced the water tank and things like that. So it's going to be pretty gnarly, but again, it'll be another amazing experience that we can talk about forever. So I'm nervously excited. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd imagine as well that the more and more remote places you go to, there's that, what's the phrase I'm searching for, but it becomes a bit more normal and you get more used to it of just like, oh, okay, well, I know how this works. And you perhaps build up a bit of a routine around it too. It becomes normalized, I guess.
It's true. And strangely enough, you almost then crave those situations a little bit. So we're in a caravan park at the moment and everyone's like squished in like sardines. We're almost craving just freedom again, where we're the only caravan around for miles. We can have a fire and it's a bit warm now up here, but anyway, you have your own space and just sit around and enjoy and watch a sunset together and play Uno and just, talk as a family. So it's you almost start to crave it's almost that silence as a family, right? I spoke about
Yeah.
how I miss silence within
Yeah.
the caravan.
Yeah.
But then it's like silence from the outside world as well, which is great having that opportunity to switch off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine you get some really nice stars as well when you're so
Yes,
remote, a proper dark night sky without
for
light pollution.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, definitely. And again, to bring it back to learnings for the kids, we've got a star map, we've got a pointer thing that we can point to the stars. And when we're at Uluru, actually, we did astronomy tour. So every night the kids are out now looking for the constellation. So um, again, great learning experience for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's still a long way off because you are, at nearer the start than the end of this journey. But do you know what's next? I mean, I'd imagine just hearing you say then about kind of, having that quiet time as a family, the thought of going back to kind of, quote unquote normal life, like what's that going to look like?
That's a really good question. We've got
One
lots
I
of
don't want to
thoughts.
think about right now. Yeah.
Well, I'd say one that I haven't got an official answer to. I mean, you're right. We've stayed at some great farm stays, for example, and the kids love the animals. So now we're thinking, okay, maybe we should be looking at buying a home on that's an acreage or something, so we can have more animals. So I really do think this trip will be life changing in that respect. Yeah, look, certainly looking forward to it. It will be great to come back, but I think how we set up our life post this trip will probably be different.
Mm.
I will return to full-time work when we return. The kids will return to school. My husband will return to his business. But the details of what that looks like might be slightly different.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I think just kind of my assumption would be you do something like that and it is going to have a fairly profound kind of impact on you and how
Mm,
you
mm,
just view, like you said, simple things like being
mm,
able to
mm,
turn on power or,
mm.
have a nice shower and wash your hair. And, it will kind of change, I think, how you think about things and how you view
Yeah,
life. And so it'll be interesting to
yeah,
see what it looks like on the other side. Not that
yeah.
I'm
No, look,
wishing it away for you, because obviously you wanna maximize it and enjoy it.
so good.
For anyone listening who's, always wanted to do this and kind of has been putting it off for whatever reason or just hasn't got round to it, what sort of advice and recommendations would you have for someone who's thinking about doing this?
So look, I think if anyone's looking or thinking about traveling, I really just say go for it. Embracing the digital nomad lifestyle has really shown me that the world does not have to be in the office and the potential is limitless. By stepping outside of our comfort zones, we can grow both professionally and personally. And yeah, if anyone's considering becoming a digital nomad, to explore new horizons and turn challenges into opportunities and, really redefine what it means to live and to work to the fullest.
Yeah, absolutely, and I like it you did it there as well. You said live and work, so we're already implementing the change. I like it.
Yep, yep.
Touched on it on quite a few different parts, but I think it might also be nice to do a kind of a day in the life. Do you want to
Mhm.
talk through well, I was going to say there probably isn't an average day. It sounds like they're quite
Yeah.
different, but yeah, give me an idea of what a day in the life looks like.
Well, as I said, I guess it's really so I'm kind of straddling wherever we are time zone and Sydney time zone at the moment. So I start working in the morning, and usually I use Trello is my Bible. So I use that to manage my workflow, and then I plan my week to ensure that I can tackle off everything I need to do, and then really sort of staying in touch with the rest of the team as well. So I want to make sure that I can be consistently available. Oh, sorry. No, that's not right. I want to make sure that I'm not a blocker for anyone.
Mm.
So I will check in throughout the day if I have service, and I set my calendar as well and customize my Slack status with my availability so that it's clear and easy to reference. And yeah, just sort of make sure that I have that clear communication with the broader team to ensure that there's smooth collaboration, even if there's connectivity hiccups. So yeah, so day to day work wise is that's kind of what that looks like. And then yeah, like I mentioned, sort of have lunch with the kids and the family, and then we head off for an adventure.
Such a nice way to structure it. That I really like that. Is there? I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's more than one. I'm sure there's many, but places that are on the itinerary that you haven't got to yet that you're particularly excited about and particularly looking forward to.
Like you said, there's many.
Yeah.
So I think definitely this Gibb River Road that we're about to do is a highlight. And then in a month or so, month or two, we should be down around Ningaloo Coast. And so they're those photos that you see of
Yeah.
people camping with their caravans on the beach. And apparently you can go snorkeling straight off the beach. So
Is that where the
that
whale sharks are? Is that?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, down that area. So we should get there just at the end of whale shark season. So fingers
Oh,
crossed.
fingers crossed. That'd be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So really looking forward to really the whole WA coast, Stamford Peninsula, Karajini. Yeah, should be good.
Very cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, finding a makeshift setup to have this conversation. Just yeah, I said before, but I absolutely love what you're doing, and I just think it's so cool. And like I said, for your kids as well, like what an amazing experience for them to have and to be able to look back on. So yeah, good on you for making it happen. That's what I say.
Thank you very much. and like I said, I'm grateful for the opportunity as well. So to my manager and the teams that made this possible, and to my family as well,
Yeah.
to jumping in with me.
Did they really have a choice there, Kelly? Let's be honest, yeah.
Everyone needs an organizer in the family.
Exactly, yeah. I am that person as well, so I understand and appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been really cool.
No worries. Thanks, Emma. It's been great to catch up.